Thanks, listeners, for joining us for today's Elko Live program here on KELK. Today's guest is a declared candidate for Congressional District 2 for Nevada. Kathy Durham is from West Wendover, and we're going to get to know Kathy and talk about some of the issues important to her as she is our guest today. Kathy, welcome to the studio. It's Kathy with a K.
That is correct. K for cool.
K for cool, Kathy Durham. Well, and how do your students feel about this? Because you've been a longtime teacher, Kathy.
Well, I haven't really been. You have to be very careful in the schools, especially as a government teacher. There is that fine line. And so I think there is some awareness. And I've had kids ask me questions, and they're excited about it. They're curious about it. I think there are kids that are disappointed that I might not be back. And I'm disappointed that I might not be back because teaching is my passion. That is my profession. I never started out to be a teacher to become a politician. But that's the path that it's taking me on, unfortunately, because of everything that we see going on. I feel like I have no other choice.
Well, Kathy, this is a unique qualification. Kathy Durham of West Wendover here in Elko County. You have had public office though before. You've sat on the school board, right?
Or City Council.
City Council West Wendover. Thank you. Yes. City Council West Wendover. So you have that experience, but you teach a particular subject that might make you uniquely qualified for this position.
For nearly 3 decades, I've taught American history, government, and now economics, probably the last 3 or 4 years.
So you have a bit of knowledge about these topics we're going to discuss today.
I do, and I'm always learning, and the knowledge is always growing because circumstances are always changing, as are the issues.
Kathy, what do you want listeners to know about you? Since, again, you're new, other than serving on West Wendover City Council, very well known in your community, certainly as we ask around. But what about your background that makes you qualified for this position?
Well, I'm passionate and I'm a hard worker. I think those are probably going to be my biggest qualifications, is that when I find something that I deeply care about and I think that I can contribute and make better, I give it everything I have. That was one of the reasons that I did not run for re-election for City Council, was because I felt like I couldn't serve 2 masters. I was still teaching full-time, and City Council pays you $500 a month. I certainly didn't get into it for the money. I got into it to make my community better. But what I realized was this is a full-time job. And so the more time I spent working in my classroom, it pulled away from making my community better. And the more I spent trying to improve my community, it was at the expense of my students. And so I just didn't feel like that was the right thing to do, and that's why I only stayed for 1 term.
And now that you've gotten into this contest, if you will, what is this about using your teacher voice we see on the Facebook page?
So, with government, especially with high school government in the public schools, what you're trying to do is we're not there to tell kids what to think. We're there to teach kids how to think and get them to form their own opinions and understand, why do I believe what I believe? If I make a claim, I can explain. And so what do we teach in American government? We teach the very foundational basics: separation of powers, rule of law, checks and balances. And as I'm teaching these things in my classroom and I'm looking out into the real world and I'm looking at DC and I'm looking at other areas of government, this is not what's happening. It's really hard to, our system depends on people being informed and being involved. And it's really hard for the average American to want to be informed and be involved when everything that you tell them of this is how it's supposed to be is not what they see. And we are, in my opinion, the greatest country on earth. We have such a great government economic system. We're not standing up for what it's supposed to be. And democracy is not something that is passed down, It's something we have to build together, and we have to work at every single generation. And I am scared for the future that my high school students are going to have. I'm scared for my own grandchildren. So we need a little classroom management in Congress.
Kathy Durham is a declared candidate for Congressional District 2 in representing Nevada. Filing does not open until March of 2026. But Kathy, you've already been on the road, is that right?
I have. I wanted to get out and test the waters and, get to the parts of Nevada that I haven't always been to before. Again, I'm not a politician. I'm a teacher in rural Nevada and on the other side of the state from where all the action happens. But yes, I have been out and checking things out, and it's been fun.
What have you been hearing, and how do people react to your candidacy?
The response has been terrific. It's been very welcoming. People are excited. They're relieved that somebody is going to maybe challenge Mark Amodei and either make him come out of the woodwork and start answering some questions that we all have, or, bring a fresh voice and a fresh vision to the office.
So, Kathy, I'm glad you brought up the incumbent congressman in seeking his seat, CD2. Do you know what you are up against?
I'm finding out. I do. And I know that there are still surprises along the way. I always want to, as a person, stay humble. I feel that I can be articulate at times, except for when I'm nervous. I feel that I'm knowledgeable about the things that I'm passionate about. And the one skill that I always try to teach my students that I feel I have is a willingness to learn and to know how to learn. And so I know that I'm up against a very daunting task. I'm up for it, and I know I have a lot to learn, but I'm not afraid of that because I know I will.
So, Kathy, you are a Democrat. You are surrounded by, even in our own county, Elko County, Republicans. Mm-hmm. Although we see the margins, we have more nonpartisan voters registered. Whether or not that means they're actually turning out, that's yet to be seen. In West Wendover, I think it's fair to say there's a bit more of a balance. You did sit on the West Wendover City Council, which is a nonpartisan mm-hmm. position. So what have you learned about partisan politics? That
I don't like it. I'm not an identity politics person. I'm not a partisan politics person. And I'll be quite frank with you. I register as a Democrat because of the voting system in Nevada. You have to be aligned with a political party in order to participate in a primary. And I understand that my voice is my most powerful weapon. It's protected in the First Amendment. And democracy only works if we do. And so I want to be able to fully participate.
We're hearing that from more people.
Yes. And I think that's something we ought to look at changing. I understand both sides of it. That's what I've learned from learning to teach economics is you have to look at every side of the issue and do cost-benefit analysis. And so I understand both sides, but we have to ask ourselves who are the real winners and who are the real losers, and what is it that we are giving up when we do that?
Kathy Durham is candidate in CD2, and this represents a sprawling district. Tell us about what you know about the boundaries.
It is so big and so vast, but it is so rich in resources and opportunity. But the key is that as we use those things to support ourselves, we have to do it in a way that allows us to sustain ourselves. We cannot be exploiting, and we have to be cognizant of the next generation, and we need to be cognizant of the people who were here before we were here and make sure that they are full partners and full beneficiaries of what we achieve.
So obviously, among the resources, whether or not you're talking about things like education or healthcare, we're going to talk about some issues. But, we have the richest gold reserves in North America. That's our industry here in rural mm-hmm. Nevada. But you have voters that you're going to be appealing to in, say, northern Nevada, right?
Yes. Well, I want to represent you're supposed to represent everybody, regardless of the colors that they fly. And so I understand that mining is critical to Nevada's economy. We have lithiums. We probably have one of the largest lithium reserves anywhere in the world. And we need to be able to figure out how are we going to harness that? How can we make that work for us? But how do we do that to where everybody benefits? And how do we minimize the harm to the environment? Mining is great. It pays our bills and it allows us to develop resources and it drives our economy. But, we have a water issue and ranchers need water, and we have data centers, and data centers need water, and we have our native tribes, and they have rights to those waters and need to have that water protected. So it's about balance.
Sounds like you are definitely getting up to speed on the various issues, Kathy, as you're making the rounds.
I'm doing my best. I'm doing my homework.
as any good teacher would, because you're, of course, inspiring your students. So the last in the topic of if you know what you're up against, Kathy, is Mark Amodei is entrenched. He has been a congressman since 2011. Mm-hmm. Do you see that as a strength or a weakness? Well,
he understands the game. But I've been teaching, government, longer than he's been playing politics. So there are going to be advantages that he has with his tenure, and I think there is going to be advantages that I have with the newness that I bring, and more importantly, that I am willing to show up and answer the hard questions, be confronted. More than that, I'm willing to listen. I want to know, what do people want from me, and what solutions do they think will work, and explain to me why you think that's the best way, and then let's see if it's doable. It's not about me coming and telling Nevada, here's how we're going to do things. It's about me listening to Nevada and finding out, how can I serve you, and let's make it happen.
Kathy Durham is our guest today here on Elko Live, as we're talking about her declared candidacy for Congressional District 2 representing Nevada. And we'll switch topics a little and get into some of the issues. Obviously, we talked a little about some of the Nevada, more local type issues, but on the broad spectrum, the scale, where are you coming in, or what are you hearing about things like healthcare, for example? I think healthcare and the economy may be, neck and neck, right?
Well, absolutely, because you have to, the economy is about how we make our money and how we spend our money, and healthcare costs are going up. And I was speaking with a young lady today that was talking about how it feels like our economy is a catch-22, and healthcare is a catch-22, because they want us to build this American dream where the mom stays home and raises the child, but we don't have an economic system that allows us to do that. And so if a mom goes to work, or the father goes to work, both parents go to work, where are you going to put the young children? If you don't have affordable child care, then all of the money that you're working for is going to pay for your child care. If you stay home, you can't make the bills, but now because of the cuts to the benefits, you can't get any of the benefits because you don't work the proper amount of it. It's a trap. It's not a ladder, it's a trap. And I think people are very concerned about the health care, and the fact that we have corporations that are driving up the costs, which is something that we need to look at, to not have so many of these mergers that make it so there is no true competition.
And then, Kathy, in talking about the economy, and I expect that you may have a little more to elaborate on, since this is one of the subjects that you've been teaching now. More than 50%, I think the figure is 60% of the members of the Elko Area Chamber of Commerce are small business people, Kathy. And so they're a very important part of our local economy here in Elko County. What is your position on how they might be impacted, say, by the tariffs?
Well, I met with a gentleman today in West Wendover, and he owns a furniture shop. And he has talked about how everything is going up. And we actually had someone that was at the event that said, could you please explain to me how a tariff works? And it's the company that is going to bring something in from another country has to pay a tariff. And so that fee is attached when it comes in. But when the person who's going to go get the furniture or the supplies from the dock, that tariff is on the bill. So it gets passed on to the business owner. And as the business owner said, it's just an extra tax that I have to pay before I can get the product into my store. And he said, with everything going up, I have to raise my prices. So tariffs are impacting small businesses everywhere. And then the economy, where it's not doing well, rents are going up, everything is going up. Affordability is not something that is in our vocabulary unless it's inaffordability.
Well, and on those tariffs, and I do want to talk more about some of the local economy issues like you just described, rents and housing. But tariffs, we hear from this administration that tariffs are going into the government coffer, that it's money that the American people are suddenly realizing. So you can see how this is confusing.
It's very confusing, and in all my years of teaching government, I've never seen it work that way. Now, I am new to the economics, only 4 to 5 years there, so there's still a lot to learn. But it might be going into the government's coffers, but it's not going. My savings account hasn't gone up; it's been depleted. And if it's going into the coffers, why aren't we feeling the benefits of that? Our debt's still increasing, so where's that money going?
Kathy, thank you for being our guest today as we're talking about these issues important to our rural Nevada and northern Nevada voters as well. She's seeking a seat, congressional district seat too. So on those more local issues too about housing, affordability, we know that there's growth right now in West Wendover. Your community has worked very hard on this since Mayor Daniel Corona, I think, sort of set things up, set the bar, got some things rolling, a former mayor. And we see places like Wells growing as well, Kathy.
And that's all great for Nevada. I mean, I think the future of Nevada is very bright. I really do. I think there is a lot that we in our communities are going to be able to benefit from, but we need to make sure that we do it in a responsible way, that all the stakeholders, starting with the families who make these communities, that they're the ones that are benefiting. We have a lot of outside corporations investing in Nevada, taking the wealth home with them. And we need to make sure that it's a little bit more equitably spread, that when we give great big huge tax breaks and incentives to businesses, and those are sometimes necessary, we need to make sure, though, again, cost-benefit analysis, what impact did that have on the community? And make sure that our communities are taking care of affordable housing, good health care, access to health care without having to leave the county.
And all politics are local. So if we look back on West Wendover, for example, we know that you have casinos. I guess that would be the primary employer. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
Yes. And so how about housing affordability there or health care? What about the impacts of deportation on the casinos in West Wendover?
I don't believe that we have had that issue in Wendover. I know it is a concern for people. Especially when it's being done in the manner that it is, that we're just going to come in, and depending on how you look or how you speak, you might end up in the back of a van. I mean, that's scary for anybody. That is scary for anybody, and it should be.
Do you have students that sort of react to that news, do you think, Kathy? Or
yeah, I want to be very careful there because these are my students, and I want to protect my community, and I want to protect my students. But I've had more than one conversation of students asking me to explain this to them, and yes.
Okay. Well, I think that's important for people to know you have that personal experience.
Oh, absolutely.
So when we are talking about corporations helping to foot the bill, that means paying their fair share of taxes, for example?
Well, absolutely. And there's a lot of different things that we can do, and these are just ideas that I'm starting to look into. But, you look at the mining, and then you compare that to what goes on with oil in Alaska. They find ways that say, okay, your company can come in here and mine, and we're going to fully support that. And we want to make sure that we've got proper regulations in it. We want to make sure that everybody that is in the area that's going to be impacted is on board with it, and that the cost is not more than the benefit. But then you can have things where part of the royalties go into the community or go to the state. Then you can have better schools. You can expand your health care. All of the public services that government is supposed to do when it promotes the general welfare, which goes all the way back to the preamble of the Constitution, not FDR's. That's not what we're talking about. But there are certain things that are better if the government does it for us than private enterprise. And public schools, health care. And if you have these royalties going in to real coffers that are directed to places that will make an impact, I think those are ways that we can hold corporations accountable in Nevada.
I think you touched on environment a bit there, and that's a good topic too. We know that Congressman Amodei he's been lying pretty low since his public lands deal sort of backfired, and I think that I know it angered a lot of people, even here in rural Nevada, where his constituents support him.
Well, one thing that I will say about Congressman Amodei, he is very good at land swaps. He helped West Wendover. I give credit where credit is due. My beef is not with him as a person; it's with the lack of representation and some bowing down. But with land deals,
the public lands,
with our public lands, those lands belong to Nevada when they come from the federal government, and all of us should be a part and have a stake in how those lands are sold, auctioned off, developed, and you have to protect everybody's interest. You can't just go with one interest. Mines need water, ranchers need water. And when we do our land deals, we need to just make sure that it's in the best interest of all of Nevada and not a special interest in Nevada.
And along those lines, the environment. We do know that nuclear testing has come into the headlines recently, and you have some pretty strong feelings about that too.
I couldn't even believe that word came up. I live in West Wendover, Nevada, and just on the other side of the border is Wendover, Utah. And if anybody knows their history, they understand the importance that Wendover, Utah played in ending World War II. And though it was a great victory for the United States and for the Allies, again, cost-benefit analysis, we can look back and see what the impact of radiation is. And so that was an atomic bomb, and now we're talking nuclear. Like why are we even having this conversation? And my thing is if we spent as much time, energy, and money investing in peace as we did developing weapons of war, I wonder where we would be.
So we know that Congressman Amodei had an interview with the Reno TV station, and he was asked about the renewed testing. He didn't seem to be too concerned in that interview, Kathy.
I'm trying to be polite, but sometimes he doesn't seem to be too concerned about anything. And I think if he was concerned, he would show up and talk to us about our concerns, because I have a lot of concerns. And I think anytime anybody starts talking about nuclear testing, we should be concerned. And when they throw that into the same sentence as Nevada, now you have my full undivided attention, because we are not anybody's testing ground. We are not your dumping ground. We are not your testing ground.
And Kathy, what do you think about, do you agree with Amodei's position that people are politically worn out with talking points?
Well, absolutely. But, where are those talking points coming from? I'll just ask that. But I think unfortunately, that's part of the plan, is to just wear us all out so that we won't pay attention. I mean, it would be ideal if we always had really good representatives that did what they were supposed to do, and we could go about the business of living our everyday American lives. And those who have a passion for the politics could serve us well. But it's this dysfunction and these talking points with undelivered results that have got people like me saying, okay, stop, and...
Kathy Durham is our guest today, and she is a declared candidate. Filing will open in March of 2026, but she is already making the rounds and talking to people about various issues. And I wanted to make sure we were getting to the things. It just seems like every day there are 10 new issues that we could be talking about. I guess that lends to what you were just saying, Kathy, about kind of getting worn out. But I want to make sure that we're getting to some of the issues that are most important to you, if we haven't already.
What's important to me is just that we have good governance, checks and balances, separation of powers, rule of law, elected officials that are there to serve because they really do want to do something good for the communities that they came from, that they want to make life better for all of us. I mean, that to me is what keeps me up at night, and it's what got me out of my classroom, was just the total dysfunction that I've seen.
So, of all the issues that we have talked about today, Kathy, there are probably a dozen more that maybe listeners say, oh, but they didn't ask about this, so I want to know her opinion on that. What is the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, I do have my website up, finally. It is Kathy Durham for Congress .com. And so you can go there. You can kind of see where I stand on my main issues, which are, first, preserving our country, our democracy, our republic, the economy, healthcare, development of our lands. And so you're welcome to go over there. You can find me on Facebook. I'm also on a lot of the socials under KD for NV02.
And then what about financial resources? Because we can only imagine the congressman, and I could look it up in a couple of clicks, but this program is about you. He'll have his turn later. But what about financial support? He probably has a huge war chest.
Yeah, well, I think the Democrats saw last election that money doesn't win votes. Votes win elections. And so this is a really hard thing because, again, I'm not an identity politics person. I definitely have I don't like dark money in politics. I don't like money in politics, period. I understand it's part of the game, and it's a game that I hope that when I'm elected that I will be able to change. I don't have a lot of money. I'm not going to ask people for money. Let me put it to you this way. Your $5 is useful, but I would rather you find 5 people who believe in me and believe in the kind of Nevada that I want to create and have those 5 people show up and vote for me. I will accept donations, obviously, because I'm going to need them. But if you've got some extra money, I can't think, saving democracy, I couldn't think of a better place to put it. But honestly, I'm going to try to do grassroots. I'm looking for volunteers that are passionate and committed to integrity, rule of law, and what we're supposed to stand for.
Kathy Durham is crisscrossing Elko County, Northern Nevada, on a teacher's salary. And again, her website is
Kathy Durham for Congress.com.
And that's Kathy with a K. Our guest today, we've been talking about, again, several of the issues, just sort of the opening of the campaign season, because we know, I'm just checking my notes here. Oh, I want to make sure that people understand of the declared candidates, the ones that we are aware of, the Republican Mark Amodei. Kathy is a Democrat. There is a Heath Fulkerson, who is also a Republican, apparently. The primary election is Tuesday, June 9th, 2026. The general is going to be next fall, Tuesday, November 3rd, so we've got almost a year to go. But we also wanted to mention that filing for public office, here it is Monday, March 2nd. So that will run through Friday, March 13th. Anyone who wants more information about that, it's at the Secretary of State's office, Kathy. But so here you go. You're launched. You're on your way.
I am launched, and I really appreciate this. This was so kind of you to take the time and give me an opportunity to speak to the people of CD2 and especially Elko. I have been coming to Elko since I was a little kid because my dad's best friend, I grew up in Salt Lake. I'm originally from Utah, and my dad's best friend lived here in Elko for many, many years. And so we would travel from Salt Lake, stop in Wendover, get us a good meal, and then we'd come out to Elko and stay for the weekend. And so I love Elko. And
nice, very nice.
Thank you for letting me come out and visit you guys.
Absolutely. Kathy Durham is a candidate. She is a near 30-year government teacher at West Wendover High School there, the Wendover High School, and appreciate your coming out to talk about these issues and your passion. And I'm sure we will meet again along the campaign trail, Kathy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.